going on, everybody? Let's talk about the 1985 Spanish supernatural cemetery of terror horror movie directed by Mr. Ruben Galindo JR. This was his directorial debut, and he said that this movie was inspired by Thriller, the music video, I guess, Michael Jackson. So this movie takes place at a cemetery, and we got a group of kids who go to this old mansion, and they find this book of evil, and they bring back this psychopath who has killed over 17 people, and he starts killing them, and there's a doctor, his psychiatrist is looking for him with this sheriff, and it's very Halloween. This movie takes place on Halloween. There's a lot of story elements here taken straight out of Halloween. If it's inspired by anything, it's inspired by Halloween. And a little bit of Evil Dead in here too. The house that they're at even has like the bench swaying back and forth. And so in the book, kind of like the Necronomicon, the Latin words that they have to say, very Evil Dead, lots of smoke and fog. It just looks Evil Dead with some Halloween story elements also. The things I like about this movie is the cemetery setting. I always like a good cemetery atmosphere. This movie's very atmospheric, and it's always a good setting for a horror movie. And then when you get to like the third act and all the zombies are coming out of the grave, and for some reason there's like yellow and red lights in their graves that they're breaking out of, smoke coming out, very rich in atmosphere. There's some gory kills in it, just a couple of good gory moments in here. Axe to the face, very Friday the 13th, and people getting gutted, and you see some innards here and there. It's not overly gory. It's not like demons, and it's nothing like that you'd see in Italian movies like this, or Fulci, but it's got some gore in here, so at least it's got that going for it. And the zombies, the makeup on them later on, kind of burial ground, kind of Fulci-esque, and even the score is kind of Fulci-like. Some of his, the trilogy of his, the Dead trilogy, I forget the name for it, Gates of Hell trilogy, it's kind of got a similar sound to that score in those movies. It kind of has like this piano at times. There's like a choir. So yeah, it's got that. It kind of adds to the atmosphere, to the tone of it. It's got that gothic horror tone and mood to it. The setting, not only the cemetery, but even the house they go to. I'm a sucker for all that stuff. It just looks good all the time, and I like it. And the movie really starts to get fun towards the third act when you got all these kids running around the cemetery and all the zombies are coming out, and the way that looks, and it's just constant like thrills are being chased around. They're finding all these dead bodies. It's just a lot of fun, and that stuff was fun. But unfortunately, going into my negatives, is that they're children. These are a bunch of kids that are our main characters now. The movie shifts focus. It's weird. It doesn't play out traditionally where you set up these characters in the first act and you follow them to the end and they slowly get picked off one by one. No, we have these characters that get picked off very quickly. By like the middle of the movie, they're all dead. And then it's like, okay, now let's focus on these children. And then I'm thinking, they're children, they're not going to die. And they don't die. They're not going to die. So that's just a bummer. I don't like having these like 5 or 6 children. They're all like 12 and under running around a cemetery because I know they're not going to die. They're going to make it. So therefore, there's a little less suspense there. I'm not as worried they're going to make it. And some of the writing is ridiculous and very Halloween, kind of ripping off a lot of stuff from it. Like, you basically got all the scenes where you got Sheriff Brackett and Loomis. In this movie, you got the same type of characters driving around, and I'm not taking orders from you, and then he just takes the car off and he's driving around, and then he sees the kids screaming, so he knows that his former patient is over there, so he comes to save the day. It's got a lot of stuff taken from Halloween, and it takes place on Halloween also. The pacing in the first act was a little slow. I just wasn't caring about the characters, and I think that's what really made it feel slower, was everything these kids were saying, how they were set up. I didn't care. They were just typical, college age, talking about going to a party, and they're like water skiing. It just kind of took a while for them to get to this house, even though I'm sure it's not that long, but it just felt long. It just kind of felt like it was dragging in that first like 20 minutes because I just didn't care for the characters. By the end of the movie, by the middle of the movie, they're fodder. They're just complete cannon fodder. It's like a slasher movie. They're just set up to die, and there's not much to them. And I just did not care for them. I also didn't care for some of the lighting choices in this movie. Like, they make this house so bright. They have to bring candles there, but when they're inside, it's so well lit. You would swear they're using, like soft lights like I have lighting me up. It's so well lit. It's ridiculous. And they're still like lighting candles pretending like it's so dark in there. It's ridiculous. You can see everything. You can see every little bit of dust in the air. It's so well lit. I mean, come on. I mean, they should have made it more dark and moody inside that house. They also do something a bit interesting here where they have the main villain, who I don't think is interesting at all. He's no Michael Myers. No. Even though it's kind of set up like a Michael Myers. You got the psychiatrist who's like, he's pure evil. Like, I think he says verbatim, like, he's evil. He's pure evil. But this guy's not interesting. But they do something interesting here where they give him the ability to be invisible in one or two scenes, but then he's not invisible in these other scenes. Why isn't he using that ability more? And like, that's the problem with supernatural movies, is that I start asking too many questions. Like, well, if he can do this, why can't he do it here? Like, he can do it here, but he can't do it here. If he can make this move, why can't he just make these people move? He should be like throwing these kids around like rag dolls, just throwing them around the house, breaking their bones. That's what this movie should have done. But his ability to be invisible just felt weird and just kind of like an idea they had one day, and then the next day said, fuck it, let's not do that no more. It just felt inconsistent. They should have stuck with that or just got rid of it completely. But final thoughts, I think it's a decent movie to check out if you're a fan of Spanish or Italian cinema. I think this is kind of like some of the other ones, kind of like some of the Fulci films. It's got that mood and atmosphere, the foggy cemetery, that cool third act with all the bodies, the zombies coming out of the ground. They're slow walking zombies, very traditional zombies. The makeup on them is kind of cool, very kind of Fulci-esque, like I said, kind of like Burial Ground. A couple of them look kind of creepy, got some gore, and it's not very traditional, like I said, with the whole, like, the kids get dispatched very quickly, and then we actually focus on little kids in the third act, which I thought was very different. So when it comes to Cemetery of Terror, I recommend that you borrow it from a friend, stream it, or rent it at Redbox. So we get this opening with Hugo Stiglitz, the actor from Umberto Lenzi's Nightmare City, if I'm not mistaken, and that movie I did not like at all. But he's having a dream of his patient coming back from the dead, so I guess it's like a premonition, because it kind of comes true. He has a dream of his patient coming back and killing this girl in the slowest elevator ever. And so we got this Dr. Loomis character, like I said, he's evil, he says. And then these kids, they go to the mansion, they find this book that belongs to Devlin, this guy's patient, and they just decide randomly, hey, let's go to the morgue and steal a body. And these girls were not on board with going to the house alone, but now for some reason they're on board going to steal a body. They never question it. They're never like saying, no, this is wrong. Even when they go to the cemetery with the body they stole, which just so happens to be out of the other dozen bodies that were there, they randomly pick one, and it just so happens to be Devlin. And they take his body to the cemetery, and they start doing this seance. They're lighting candles, and they're reading from the book, all these Latin words. Why? Like, they just went there to drink, have sex, and party, and now all of a sudden they're like, fuck it, let's go steal a body from morgue. I feel like I might have missed some dialogue. Maybe I was writing a note, and they said something, it was explained, but I'm just like, what the fuck? Why did they go to steal a body, and these girls are on board? They didn't even want to be at that fucking place. And now they're just like, oh, sure, yeah, let's go steal a body. And then, yeah, let's read from the Book of Evil. We don't know what he's saying in Latin. But then finally, at some point, one of the chicks is like, this is wrong, like, I'm leaving. It's like, finally, you should have said that an hour ago. It was just ridiculous. And then we got all these kids on Halloween night without their parents. Apparently that's a thing. Not when I was growing up. Every kid I saw on the block had parents with them. I mean, they're practically handcuffed to their parents. That's how close they were. I mean, come on. But I guess it was a different time, different country. But all these kids by themselves, they just hitchhike. They stick their thumbs out. They get in a minivan of all cars. That's even more sketchy. This guy, probably about my age, picks up all these kids, Hey, where you want to go? Take us to the cemetery. And he takes them to the cemetery on Halloween night. And nobody's wearing costumes. Everybody has like masks on, but it's like these cheap Dollar Tree plastic masks with like the string that goes around your head. It's very cheap. Like nobody is actually trying to get creative with their outfits. Like they don't actually have outfits on. They just got the plastic mask on. And another thing I noticed is that all these dead bodies at the morgue, I guess they just got there, so they still have all their clothes on, I guess. I thought they would be naked, have toe tags and shit, because isn't that usually what they do? Maybe not. I don't know. I was just kind of questioning it. I mean, he's there for hours, right? And he's still got all his clothes on. Another thing I noticed is all the cans of Pepsi Free, which was no longer a thing after like 1985. They talk about it in Back to the Future. I want a Pepsi Free. Hey, if you want it, you gotta pay for it. All right, give me a milk. Chocolate. Different person saying that, but it reminded me of Back to the Future, seeing all the Pepsi Free cans. And so then we find out that the zombie's invisible, but then he's not invisible, and then he is invisible. He just kind of keeps going back and forth, and all the kids are getting dispatched like one after the other. Just the one chick gets gutted in the closet. The one guy gets kind of like the Halloween Bob kill. He gets like pinned on the wall, something that I think like went through his head. That could have been done way better. It was kind of confusing at first because I didn't really see what was on the wall, but something was holding him up there. And then the other guy, he's like in a tug of war match, like he's trying to hit the guy with the axe, but then the axe gets turned around, hits him in the face. And later on, when they all go there and they find like all the bodies. It's like a house of horrors, all these bodies falling out, just like Lori at the end of Halloween, all her friends falling out of the closet, Linda, Bob, and he grabs the axe from that guy's head. And I like that there was like a piece of flesh hanging off of the blade. You don't usually see that when they retrieve a knife or they retrieve whatever. There's never, maybe there's blood, but there's never like a piece of flesh that came off with it. And in this one, you do see that. I thought that was a bit different and cool. And then, so yeah, and this is the point in the movie where the movie completely shifts focus to these children instead of the adults, because they all got murdered pretty quickly. And so after they find the bodies and shit, all the zombies just start coming out of the ground. Very cool. All the yellow and red lighting, all the fog. It was pretty cool. It's the best scene in the movie. It's what stands out. And they cut to Loomis. I'm going to call him Loomis because that's who he is, really. They keep cutting to this Loomis guy like 5 times in the movie just to show you, like, hey, he's still driving. Unnecessary. They should have taken at least 3 of those segments out. Maybe show him twice, because in case you forgot that he was driving, but they cut to him driving around town, and I swear it's the same shot each time. But they cut to him like 5 times, and they don't cut to him for like 5 seconds. They cut to him for like 15 seconds. It's like, dude, we get it. He's driving. He's on the way. Another thing that's ridiculous is he crashes through the cemetery gate, this big old metal gate, and it, A, doesn't really seem to do much damage to the car. B, doesn't set off his airbag. And C, he actually successfully breaks down that gate instead of just coming to a complete stop like he hit a brick wall. And then another thing, right after that, the kids come in and his car won't start. It's a major plot convenience. Like, I can't stand that shit in other movies where it's not supernatural. And, is it supernatural this moment, or did his car just conveniently die because of the crash? Like, he plows through the gate, the kids jump in, and he has to, turn the ignition. So he turns the car off? Why would you do that? Crashes through the gate. Come on, kids, but first let me turn my car off, and then you can come in, and then I'll try to turn. Why would you turn your car off at all? Makes no sense. And they do that in a lot of movies. I think even Slaughter High does it. And the guy picks up the girl. It seems like every time someone makes a stop in horror movies, they feel the need to turn the key off. Like they turn the car off. Don't. You don't need to. It's stupid. You're going to start driving again in less than 5 seconds. But the car won't start, so that's a trope. I can't stand it. And the zombies, they never even attempt to kill these kids. Every time they grab them, they're like bear hugging them, just hugging them. Like they could bite them, but they don't. I guess these aren't those type of zombies because they're scared of crucifixes now. All of a sudden, when did that become a thing? These are vampire zombies. They're holding like crucifixes. I mean, the crucifix cross. The wooden crosses above their grave didn't scare them away, didn't keep them down below. They just broke out from beneath the cross. But now these crucifixes, they're like, oh no. And how did that tree actually pin him down? It was like a very skinny tree with very like twig branches. It was like the smallest, most frail tree that fell on him, and somehow he can't get out from underneath it right away. But whatever, nitpick. And so then we get this moment where the girl is like frozen for like a whole minute. And why is she frozen? Makes no sense. Like, maybe at first, when she first made eye contact with the villain, he, I guess, put like a minute spell on her to make her frozen. I don't know what the hell was going on there, but she was like frozen for a long time, just enough time for this other guy to get his ass kicked for a while. But then she burns the book, and then that destroys the evil, I guess. But then the end reveal we get at the end, which you saw coming a mile away, come on, is that somebody else is now carrying the curse, and it's the Loomis guy. He looks at the camera at the very end. He's holding the burning book, which is actually on fire. Like, that was a real burning book that he was holding there. It looked pretty real. And just smiles at the camera. And the end. So, sequel. We never got one. But yeah, it was an entertaining third act. The second half definitely makes up for that bit of a drag first act. But it's got good atmosphere, some good gore, just kind of silly writing, and I didn't like that there was kids as the main characters at the end, but still a decent movie to watch, especially around Halloween, because it takes place on Halloween. So it's a good Halloween. I just realized I'm wearing a Halloween shirt, and I keep talking about it. That was not on purpose. I swear I did not throw this shirt on because I knew I was going to talk about it. But yeah, so yeah, it's a good movie. Not the best. It's not the greatest, but check it out. What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.